if there's one word, it's obsession.
Obsession,
Like
correct.
having that obsession that nobody can even pull you back,
Yeah.
and it will mean also losing people along the way if they pull you back. And I don't even really care because I'm building something for myself and for my future family. And if you're not on board, look, I don't gotta show you out, right? But I value the people who really come into my life and like really encourage me in genuine ways, in ways where they want me to win. And there are seasons for even people like this. And I feel like the biggest lesson for me this year is people.
Most people say you should focus only on one thing. But what if that advice is why most creatives struggles financially? Well, today's guest, she chose the opposite. Crystal lives with ADHD, a mind that moves fast, feels deeply, and refuses to fit into a box. She's built a florist business, a social media agency, a podcast, and multiple creative ventures across KL and Kota Kinabalu. She learned the hard way that passion alone doesn't pay the bill. Well, in this conversation, we're talking all about money without shame, creativity without illusion, and building a sustainable life without losing yourself. Let's dive into her story.
Yep. Can you tell us more about yourself?
Hi, Crystal, obviously. I own a florist. It's now 2 years old. We're supposed to celebrate it in December. And then I also run a social media agency which manages social media for clients and or consultation for marketing purposes. But over the years, I've dabbled in a lot of smaller creative and maybe not business oriented, but creative ideas and or just passion projects in the creative scene. Now my main gig is floristry as well as social media.
So between floristry and social media agency, what do you focus mostly?
For the florists, it does have seasons where like, Valentine's Day and then there's Mother's Day, but mostly now because we do decorations and installations over the course of like November up until like end of February, that would be like the whole rush of like Christmas and there's Chinese New Year. And so it's very seasonal, but there are months where like March onwards, it will feel like I'm unemployed and jobless because it follows seasons, right? So that's the reason why I decided to take on social media clients also here and there, because initially when I started the florist, I had given that up mainly because I had to focus. I wanted to build the business first and then build the foundation, the niche, blah blah blah. It has somewhat of a recognition and stability, I'd say. Then that's why I feel like I personally need a little bit of a breather. Like I can't sit there all day and wait for people to buy flowers.
Right.
And I can't force people to buy flowers and or like just keep doing all these
Buy from me.
yeah, no, and the thing is like what usually people do is that they set up promotions like, oh, monthly promotion, this is $100. Great, but that's not what we're trying to do, because that also in itself is just contradicting to the whole niche of the business. So I try not to do
It
that.
kind of like depreciates the value of it, right?
Exactly, and it's like you're selling yourself out because at the end of the day, people are just gonna wait for that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the marketing strategy, but if that's your marketing strategy, it is, and it will block you down for good. But I don't want to do that, and because the business so depends on like the seasonal, the festives. Once it was somewhat stable, I tried to do a little bit of social media work, not just to stay creative, but obviously to stay afloat, because it's just not feasible or sustainable to depend on one source of income, and which I actually learned the hard way. And it's not for everyone, right? But it is how I got here today, and how I guess like this journey of mine that I chose, this niche of mine, it works for me in that way. Yeah.
So you have mentioned you have also ventured into like hobby projects as
Yeah.
well, like dinner at 56,
Yeah.
Ultramarine,
Yep.
some exhibitions. I feel like they are mostly like creative, but they are also in different niche.
Yeah,
Yeah?
that's true. I don't want to blame it or like label this as like an ADHD thing, but it kind of is, because I can't stay still and I can't sit still, and my mind goes everywhere. And this like having to kind of like put my hand in different plows, it does motivate me. And also because the main reason why I stay in the creative industry and why I strive to make an impact is because I want to like create that impact and then inspire people, right? So I think not just it fuels me to do different things, but also I don't know why I have so many interests. Like it just fuels me when I do so many different things at the same time. I can't speak for a lot of people because it's creative industry, right? So to stay creative, you need to always be curious. You need to always do different things, see different things, talk to different people. Yeah, I dabble in different things. So like for dinner at 56, it's a home dining supper club. I think one of its kind in KK. Like nobody's done that before.
Yeah.
And because at the time when we started it, my partner is a chef. So it makes sense. So I co-host and I also decorate the table. So it's a fun also awareness for FS so that people can think out of the box. So what we do for dinner at 56 and how this like tablescape thing came about and how I guess now it's become so recognized is because like we would get seasonal like fruits and foods or whatever, right? And usually they're finger foods. So I would incorporate that in the tablescape. So before like when the guests come and then before the dinner starts, they get to like nibble on like the spread on the table and the tablescape. So that's why I also love using fruits and vegetables as the tablescape, and that's become my niche. Now I also co-host a podcast, which is crazy because people look at me and I look at myself and I'm like, for real? And then there's Ultramarine, right? Ultramarine, it was also kind of like, it happened before we even talked about it kind of thing, which I love because I'm really spontaneous that way and I thrive when I'm in that kind of environment. I think we had somewhat of a conversation in September. And then it was actually meant to launch in November, but you know how it is, like renovations and all that technical stuff. But eventually we will launch in December. It will go on until end of February. It's a crossover between fabric and bloom, so like fashion design and like floristry. And it makes sense, I guess, because I've always been passionate about fashion also. And I don't know if you know this, but I went to fashion school, sort of. It wasn't like fashion design, it was marketing management, but I never got to finish. I never got to like really go into that, but that has always been one of the businesses I would like to go back to. And so it made a lot of sense, and also because like there was a runway kind of thing, and this exhibition actually was meant to, for me in the business point of view for FS, was meant to create exposure as well as perspective, because as the fashion scene continues to grow, there's the demand also for installations, like you know how like what's this locations where they decorate, blah blah blah, and it goes by theme and everything, and I love that this exhibition also becomes a platform for FS to go there in the future, which I'm really excited about. I love it, and also because I want to raise awareness for FS for the fact that we actually do a lot of installation work for like retail events, so like planter boxes. IDs will come to us and then we will do up the work. Some of the times before they open up shop, but then some of the times it's like revamping the work that is already done, or maintenance work and stuff like that. So I love doing that because more than like events, for example weddings, because weddings are so time restrained, and we don't really like, we can't control the variables of like whether the stocks arrive on time, whether like these items are available, whether it will rain, whether like you know labor, all that kind of stuff. So nothing basically is in your favor when it comes to that, and also because there's such a huge supply for that already. I don't want to be one of the other competition. So that's why I love doing that. Now with the scent, oh my gosh, like
oh
I
my
want
god,
so
I
many
love
things.
the scent, you know.
I want so many things.
You know, right now I'm not drinking coffee. And
Okay.
you know what wakes me up? Your scent.
For real?
Yeah, I mean like it makes me kind of like relax in my space, like
But still like wakes you up, kind of like freshens you up.
yes,
kind of thing.
yes, yes,
It's
correct.
like driving. Did I tell you before I named the scent? My scent makers, my partners, they named it Kundasang, and they actually based it off of that because like my story and me as an artist and my upbringing, my storytelling, it inspired them to create it in that way, and then they named it Kundasang, and which it makes sense because the pine, the fear needle pine that is inside, it actually does. Like we have it in Gunasang and I love it, and it's like I have this memory in my head actually, the way I described it to you, like how it's walking through a pathway of like pine trees, and then after the rain, and then you get the whiff of like the soil and everything. I actually have that memory in my head because we used to visit I don't know if you know Perkasa Hotel, so there's like an uphill road, and then that it's just always like stuck with me because it was like a family thing. We always stop by there whenever we have road trips, and we had road trips like so often, like almost every weekend, and then we would go to like really remote places. We would jungle trek, we would go to waterfalls. Yeah, I love it.
I love it too.
I love the scent now that it's becoming a product. I've talked to scent makers about doing like a whole line of products because like
Yes, please.
because you know how it is, like the commercial fragrances and scents, they're always so artificial and it just
So commercial.
it just icks me in so many ways, and it's like I can't change it. And I've actually experimented on my own where like I buy like the base, you know, the raw materials of like, for example, if it's like shampoo, then it's like the whatever shampoo is made of without the scents and everything, and I would like experiment with like essential oils and everything. So then it inspired me that, oh, if this scent works, it will work for, you know, most
Yeah.
things. And because I'm sensitive to a lot of commercial products, so
Chemicals.
I guess so. Having the freedom to like, okay, and now that I like the scent, and I can create, you know, lotion or like sanitizers, shampoos, and all of that, but then they're all natural, right?
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
You know what's funny? Like I used to have like this experience. Like I remembered like the first ever product that I've made is a body oil.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So also like made based with essential oils.
Right.
Yeah, and
Right,
some
right.
based with, you know, jojoba oils
Right.
and
Yeah,
like some
yeah,
other
yeah.
oils together. So yeah, it's fun to like experiment that. Yeah, I love it. To make it into business, into a product though, it's a whole new
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. I think somewhere along the years of entrepreneurship, whatever you call that, I realized I really do understand the importance of working with people who are already professional and specialized in their fields, and rather than like trying to figure it all out by yourself. And I used to be like that because I used to want to like have everything under my control,
Correct.
and then so that I can like play the cards correctly. But then I realized as you grow, you don't want to be hands-on with everything that you do, and it's a whole point of like how we deem success in entrepreneurship. But then I really needed to sit myself down and be like, hey, you need to have more trust in people in the very early stages, even though it will fail, but at least you figure out earlier that
Yeah.
it failed with this person, rather than like going like maybe spending 3-5 years of your
Yeah.
time on this particular product
Yeah.
when like somebody else has already mastered it.
Yes.
And if you could just like, hey, can we work together, right?
Yes.
Every no is one step closer to a yes, right? So it's like if you hit it off, and then if you ask the question, and if you never ask, you'll never receive, kind of thing. These time makers, Seastone, I was their customers to begin with, and because they only have one consignment, like retail consignment in KK, they're based in KL, and it's funny because Joanne, which is the store owner of the retail store, she says like nobody else buys the stuff, and you're the only person in the sales report, you're the only person that buys the products. And so eventually I visited them in KL, we hit it off, like we had conversations, and it's like, hey, do you want to come over? And then they did. And so like I brought them around, and then they went to Kunasang. That's why they know the scent so well. It's been a really, really great journey just working with people like this in the creative industry, where they really stand their ground, and then they're willing to go out of their way even to just achieve certain things. So I really, really respect that, and I feel like at some point I've unconsciously ambassadored their products and their brand, but because I believe in it so much, and also because I stopped wearing perfume, like commercial fragrances, perfumes, for a long time because I have sensitive like nose or whatever, it just aches me. And ever since I found them, it really changed the game for me, because I love scents, I love these things, but the fact that it doesn't irritate me, that's just such a plus.
Right.
Yeah.
When you started, you mentioned you studied fashion
Marketing and management. So
Marketing
basically
and
business
management.
and fashion.
Okay, so that's also like in a creative
It is.
industry
Yeah.
plus business. So what makes you choose this?
Like
degree?
floristry?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like in fashion that time. Like
Oh.
why did you study that?
Okay, funny story, because so my dad had always like valued education, and then he's always like, at least get a degree, so whether or not you will fall back onto that, at least you have something to fall back
So
on.
before that, you didn't want to like pursue.
I wasn't a big fan. It's not that I suck at studying. If I had to or I liked it,
You
I
just
would.
didn't find a point.
I'm just a bit too like, I can't sit still, right? And it's like, it feels like sitting in class feels like I'm sitting at a 9 to 5,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
like
yeah,
it
yeah.
just doesn't.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I need to go out, I need to run around. I feel like kind of a boy. My dad was like, you need to at least have a degree. And then he's like, it doesn't matter what it is. And I found this like niche, and I was like, I can't design like from scratch. I can't sit there for 50 hours sewing something, and if it turns, that kind of stuff. So and then I found this new niche course, and I was like,
You somehow needed like an outlet to
Create.
to create.
But
Like a
we
creative.
weren't really creating, but like the topics were actually interesting. It wasn't like all that theoretical, and it's not like spending hours and hours on the same thing. Nothing wrong with that, but it just didn't cut it for me. I guess marketing had always been, and then I'm interested in fashion. So without having to study for fashion design,
Yeah.
it was like a whole package of what
Correct.
I liked, and then it was
Correct.
like, I'll take this. But actually, ultimately, I didn't finish because halfway through my first year, my dad kind of like of old age and everything, I had to come back, which is how I actually discovered eventually floristry. Working with greens, flowers, and that kind of stuff reminded me of my mom. So at that point, it was like my mom was away because my parents were separated. And because like missing home and missing mom kind of thing, I got into it and I realized, oh my gosh, I can do this and I really like it. And so I did, and because it's a startup and I got to really grow with the company and actually grow the company, seeing that impact that I had in the company with all the efforts that I put in, I really put in like 2000% because I knew I could, and like I was quite young. So I think at that point I was like 20. And within a really short time, I guess in a few years, I wouldn't say made it to the top, but you know what it is, like climbing the ladder, whatever you call that.
Yeah.
Without even, like subconsciously doing it without me thinking that I'm doing that, because I was just giving it my all because I was learning new things, and
Yeah.
it was a great platform for me to
Yeah.
like really experiment. And so out of gratefulness, I guess, I was really treating it like my own. Then that leads me to the struggle of that, if I can get into that, because the struggle and the challenges of that in the early, that was before 2020. So like as I was like climbing the ladder or whatnot, people thought, I come from wealth, like or like people legitimately probably thought I slept with the bosses, whatever,
Right.
to climb my way up and everything. So I think that was quite a huge thing for me, and I was very emotionally wrapped around that whole thing because of the perception of others, and I wasn't very mature in my own like identity and everything. So that really, really broke a huge part of me being like and going forward. And I think that was also kind of like what kept me behind kind of for quite a few years. I was struggling with that, and it was at that time KK was like, it was not known for women to have a career and or like strive in career and like actually like working. And so I was called so many names, like workaholic, 女强人, whatever. But if you think about it, like if it's in a perspective of a male person, it would just make sense, right? If you work and then just work hard, right?
That's right.
But yeah, that was one of the biggest challenges that I had like early on in the career. I didn't even think about it as a career at first. I was just like, I like this thing, like this is fun. I could do this for a long time. So floristry, I didn't actually choose it. And I didn't choose to build a business around flowers, like a florist shop or whatever. But it was at that point of when I left the company, like the florist, I started my social media agency. And I thought it was like, okay, done and dusted, bye-bye, you know what, I'll probably never go back there.
To floristry.
I'll just like do this new thing because like, I picked things up quite quickly, and then
Yeah.
I did it. And for a couple years in, it was as if like this draw towards like having to like touch, like physically have
Physical
like
things.
like do something with flowers. Just like, it's not that don't like the work of the agency or whatever. I enjoy it, but also at the same time it was too much digital that I needed to like really physically
Draw
do
yourself.
something.
Yeah, okay.
And I kept finding myself going back, and I didn't realize that because like whenever there's something to do with gifting or whatever, I just went back to my roots, right? And I didn't realize it was a passion up until a point where I realized when I stepped away, like for a couple of years. And the florist actually came up as another form of, it happened before we even talked about it, because it was like a really casual conversation of like, hey, should we do this? Do we want to do this? And we did. We didn't even really talked about like the whole interior design and everything, right? I wasn't involved in the whole thing or anything like that. It was just like one picture shown to me. I was like, oh, I love it. And it just carried on, and it was like, by the time it was done, it was like, okay, you can move in now. I was like, okay, I'm gonna move in now.
You meant curated.
Yeah.
Okay,
So like the
okay.
florist moved in to curate it when it first started and everything, and I was like, okay, it's happening now. And it's happening now.
Yeah.
And it's like everything kept like happening, and I had to just pick up the pieces as I went on. And now that it's 2 years old, I feel like it's safe to say that through the course of like all the challenges in the first couple of years, and especially in the first year, we struggled a lot in terms of like not just staying afloat, but the biggest fight was that people didn't understand what I was doing. So because it was like unconventional, it was a niche and everything, people didn't understand, and so eventually it was at that point where I needed to make a choice. It was either because to sustain the business and to drive in income, in which the best way I know is to do all these promotions like hey, monthly promo, this is blah blah blah, and it's the easiest thing to do, but I had to choose to stand my ground for the reason why I started it and why I wanted it to be unconventional. I wanted to create a different perspective to floristry that people may not be familiar with. And that took a lot, because it was at that point where I had to lay off my help or like cut his salary in half and everything, and then I was struggling, and I had to, for quite a while, I had to depend on myself and then or like just part-timers, because we just were struggling to stay afloat. But I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad I stood my ground, because by the end of that year we started, we gained recognition without me even knowing. I wasn't unknowingly, because like I don't advertise on IG, FB, and I don't like have a great budget allocated to like advertising whatsoever. I've never advertised, and it was all purely word of mouth, and then eventually people got it, and then the people who understood unknowingly just became like FS was known, and me myself was known to create out of the box, and like I am so grateful that till this day, I think including yourself, you guys see the art behind of the work, and then you guys really recognize the art for what it is. And I have really come to a point where like all this while I don't compare like FS to all the other florists in KK, not because like it's not worthy or whatever, it's just it's different. It's so different. Like put me beside any other commercial florist in KK even, put me beside it, and we will target a whole different niche and like completely different demographic.
You know what I love about your work is that you actually tell a story, and you are like a storyteller, like from whatever that is coming from, like the person that is buying from your customer, like a few description, and you're able to make it into a story, and that's what I love about it.
And so like with this storytelling thing, right, I didn't realize I was a storyteller until the point where I realized I was always this middle person. Like I'm always like either the agent or the stylist. I'm always this middle person to like convey, either communicate, for example, what you want to, for example, with the agency, sometimes it's like photographers or videographers, like production crew, they'll get me involved, and then they'll be like, can you liaise like with the client, because like we don't know what they want, and then it's like the clients don't know how to speak technical also. So I'm always this middle person where like I make it fun to like involve both parties, and then at the same time communicate what they want. And then later I realized actually with what I'm doing with floristry is also I'm the stylist. I don't grow the flowers, but then whatever is handed to me, I'm able to like
Style it.
Yeah, and then according to maybe like just short description throughout this journey of like this FS business and everything, right? I realized my personal growth with that is that I realized the empathy inside of me had really helped for me to recognize details very early on. For example, like usually what I would get my clients to do is that to show me like their IG or photos, or like describe to me like who they are to you kind of thing. And with just that, I don't know if it's just me with a bunch of emotions, but I get it. Like, so when I get it, it just flows. I don't even have to like try. And I guess that is the gift that I continue to strive to steward properly, because I don't want it to go to waste. And also it has evidently impacted and or showed like new perspectives to people, where like when you think florist, right, you think, you know, the commercial style of floristry, and you don't get to see this very often, especially in KK, which is why I strive to still do that in KK, even though everyone's like, you know, you'll do better elsewhere. Yeah, I believe that if I make it here, I'll make it anywhere else. I hope.
Yeah, definitely you will.
Yeah, I really do. I do, because ultimately I will want to leave, not like for good. I will want to like venture out, and then eventually, actually, I want to retire to New Zealand. We were just talking about this with a couple of friends of mine, but I don't know.
You like nature, huh?
I do. So one of my like dreams is to move into to build a cabin in the woods by the river, and then raise my children in a farm, and like have them barefoot running around, and not be afraid of dirt and nature, and where like where it all kind of like where we all connect, you know, fully to ourselves and nature, and but not too far away from civilization. That's always been my dream, because I don't want to like disregard the society and all what's happening.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm so drawn to nature that I feel like I hear from nature, kind of like I receive from nature. I don't want it to like feel so like universal or whatever, but it's like, because you deal with like live, living plants, living things, it speaks, right? And I believe this through my experience in the floristry, that when you're in a bad mood, don't even bother doing anything. So I've had so many.
I agree with you.
Do you know what I mean? And I've had so many experiences where like I'm in a bad mood, and I do the flowers, and I just can't do it, and it will take me multiple retries, and I just won't get it until I get myself straight. So it has also become kind of a therapy session for me to do flowers, and sometimes I do it just for the sake of doing something, and that's why I also like it as a form of gifting, because it is like very genuine, and it's also like, you know, handmade, and I think not a lot of people get to see or feel flowers on a daily basis, and I feel like that's also a privilege for me to have that.
Would you consider yourself as a creative person?
Yeah, I do, and I think I didn't realize how creative I was, and I feel like I still don't understand when people tell me I'm so creative or so talented. I don't understand the degree of that, because I grew up kind of like just it was in my blood, and I remember ever since I was younger, it was always like the gifting of like I would like handmade like cards, I would draw, I would like give my friends. I feel like I don't think of the word creative as how non-creative people think creative. Sure, I'm in the creative industry, I get creative with things, but I feel like people kind of like always overemphasize it, because like they're different, right? For the longest time, I thought it was an insult. And I feel like it's a bit of both, because they didn't understand me, and they just couldn't crack the code. So they called me, I feel like it's more insulting in Mandarin, 艺术家.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
If you say I'm an artist,
yeah,
sure, but 艺术家来的他，不懂来讲我的. And I'm like, should that be a compliment? And I think for a while, I didn't sit right with the whole idea of being called an artist, and I hated it for a long time.
I think somehow they relate 艺术家 with like some sort of like a personality, like in a bad way. Yeah.
Like when you're in the creative industry, weird is a compliment.
Yeah.
But to non-creative people, we're weird. Like we're flat out just weird. We have crazy ideas. And I think with creative people and non-creative people, the difference is that we have the courage to go follow our crazy ideas, and we want to like see how it would play out and everything. And I think non-creative people, they just like kind of play it safe. They're like, oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I'll just stick to my path.
Yeah. In my adulthood, where they cross paths with me, and they're blown away, because like the way that creative people perceive things, and how like we can just sit with the spontaneity and just like oh, let's do this, like let's go and do that now, and let's do it now. And then even if we fail, it doesn't matter. And I think so for the longest time, I think one big thing that separates non-creative and creative people is courage.
Yeah.
I think it's the courage of doing something even though you know it will fail, it will hurt you, it will destroy you, but having that courage to know that at the end of the day you'll pick yourself up.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if you can learn it. I feel like through experiences you probably can gain confidence to be more courageous, but I think some people are born with it. And so I think I was raised in a way where I was fearless. Like I was fearless to all things, like physical things, non-physical. I think I used growing up, I'm not just close to nature. My dad used to get me to catch cockroaches, toads,
I can't do that.
grasshoppers, dragonflies. And so he taught me to not fear.
Yeah.
He taught me to not fear
That's good,
physical
though.
things first.
Yeah.
And then later I became so fearless, like nobody could handle me. Like my mom was I was my mom's biggest enemy. And I was running around like no other girl or like young girl or like child. And I think up until this day I have more courage than a lot of people, not just like,
Average
average, and I'm so thankful for that because and growing up in a family that runs a business, evidently there are some traits that probably the world doesn't teach you, but then because you're on the inside and it feels like it's different for everyone, but knowing what I know, I don't think I want to choose the path of like doing a 9 to 5. I think even if all fails, I would just like figure some other thing out.
Yeah.
I will probably never resort to a 9 to 5. And even if all fails and I start from scratch somewhere, even if you throw me in probably a car workshop or something, and then have me start with washing cars or whatever, I feel like somehow I would just work things out in a way where
You do really well.
I'll flip the flip the business, right?
Yeah,
I'll flip
yeah,
it in a creative
yeah,
way, market
yeah.
it differently, and then like
Yeah.
even if I have to be the forefront of like, I guess having that courage to know that even if it doesn't work out, it's fine. At least I tried.
Yeah.
Really helps set you apart from
It doesn't go to zero though. Like whenever you learn like new things, a new skill, it somehow kind of like build your foundation into like even if you explore into another industry per se, but you can also use the same skills and apply it to another industry.
That's business for you, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like these things people don't teach you in school is that's what business is. It's very generic, it's very general, but you have to get creative with the theories and or like to
Correct.
apply certain things, but there's nothing new under the sun. Everything's already discovered and or like it's already written. And I think when you crack the code, you crack the code. I even went into hospitality / accommodation and I was managing the company from the inside, but also was able to have the chance to like really revamp the whole thing, restructure the whole thing, and the mindset of like anything is learnable or figure outable as long as you have that drive, because you personally have that drive rather than like depending on like the company. A lot of people, I realized in my days working in the florist, I think a lot of people come in and they're like, in general, people are like, oh, I will just do the work as much as they pay me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I feel like, sure, like if you're comfortable with that, but then like,
You wouldn't learn anything.
it's not just that, it's like, where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
Right? Honestly speaking, you have such a platform to make mistakes without having to bear
Yeah,
the
that's true.
consequences. And once you see the consequences and you learn and then you choose to do it differently when
Yeah.
you're on your own kind of thing. But then again, it's like if every single person working a 9 to 5 is so motivated and self-driven, we won't have employees anymore. And it's just, like nothing wrong with that. It's just like what sets you apart and what's the difference.
It's the different
kind of thing.
mindset.
Yeah. Which is
There's no right and wrong
yeah.
actually. Like if success means to you like to climb a ladder and be like at the top of the ladder, and that's fine too. Or if you want to stay at that same point, it's your success, and your success could be like be a great mom or be a great father.
For sure.
Like success means different things to different people.
Yeah.
Do you think it's tough like creatives in business?
What's really challenging is balancing. I feel like, so because I don't really have a partner per se in business, so it's really about balancing if this works in a business point of view and or if this will still kind of tell that story in a artistic point of view. So how I had kind of managed to balance that mindset is that the reason why it was a storytelling, so how FS and this whole the storytelling thing came about is because, first of all, I didn't want to create a catalog. I didn't want to limit my creations on just, okay, for example, if I have a catalog, and we used to do this, right? Red roses, and then pink roses, and white roses. And then what if this week, and people come last minute all the freaking time. So how do you expect somebody to like look through your catalog and then like, if they want this and you don't have this? And it's
That's
like
your industry secret, is it?
It is actually. I mean, I wouldn't call it a secret. It's just strategy. So how I managed to balance it in a business point of view plus in an artistic point of view is that I don't create a catalog, and that's why the storytelling thing came about. And second of all, there's no sample product. You can't compare this to a sample, and that's where you don't have any complaints per se. Like because like if you have a sample, it's like, oh, 货不对版. It's like it's different from the picture.
Yeah. It's like
but
ordering the food and it doesn't come
but you
in
don't
the
have
same
a picture.
size.
So like, and also because these are the things that I cannot control. Like for example, like even if it's white roses, it will grow differently. It will look differently because every single thing, like every single living thing, you know, turns out differently. So I can't control that. So if I can't control that, what I can control is not giving you a picture of sample. And then that's how also the whole storytelling part came about, because it's like uniquely yours, and then and evidently it works. It's not like I'm a fraud and like, you know what I mean? And evidently that's what I'm good at. And because in the previous florist as well, I guess when it comes to like creative arrangements, I was always the person to be doing that. So it wasn't something new to me. But also I think people later learn to appreciate it, because you just imagine, right, on Valentine's Day, because everyone like churns out packages and like, you know, the tiers and, you know, ABC, blah, blah, blah. But can you imagine how many husbands and boyfriends choose, for example, package A? And then you're trying to post a story, and then you see every other girlfriend has like, you know, they have the same thing, and like, what does that make you feel, and where's the emotional value of that? And I feel like what FS is trying to serve is also that emotional value of like, you are unique to this particular flowers that is made for you. And also because it's friendly to people, like usually they have a budget. Everyone has a budget, right? With whether or not the range is far or not. But it's like, I want to be able to work in a way where you give me the flexibility, then I also can give you the flexibility of like having a budget, and I can work with that. And I feel like that's the middle ground, and that works really well. And I usually don't have to go past like one page of conversation in order to lock a sales down, because it's already done. And also this is one of the strategies of like not doing too much branding, is that people will make the effort to find you. You know how like everyone else just prints their logo just because they're so afraid that people don't know where it's from? Nothing wrong with that. But at first I saved on the cost of like having to do all of that, but later I learned that actually then people actually will recognize your work. So the whole thing is that I realized that the whole pattern is when, for example, I gift you flowers from FS, and then because there's no label, you will have to make the effort to be like, hey, where's this from? And then you have to go to the IG, and then you'll see the work, and then like, I don't have to sell it to you. And by the time you order flowers from me, when you need it, you're already sold. I don't need to convince you who I am, what I do, and what FS is about. And I think that has worked wonders for FS, and that has really cut the load of work of like, okay, what do we do next month? What's like the theme next month, and blah, blah, blah. And always, even when customers come to me and they're like, hey, do you have this particular flower? I don't just like shut them down and like, oh, we don't have this. I think a lot of people do that. But instead it's like, hey, what's the occasion? Blah, blah, blah. Because like most guys, when they buy flowers, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they want. They probably don't know what their wives want. Right? And but also, I think it's a privilege having like relationships with a lot of my clients and their families, because I know them in person, and I know them as a person and individual. So I kind of like can gauge whether or not, oh, maybe they would like this, they would like that. They probably, I would sometimes have to be like, are you sure? Because like, I feel like this would be a better option. They're like, actually, you know what, just do your thing. And I love it. And it's like swift, it's like efficient for everyone, because like, I don't think they want to think about that. I don't have the restraint of like, it has to be red roses, it has to be like, you know, 20 stalks, and like, I don't like to be limited.
I feel like the surprise element is there, and like
Yeah.
it kind of feels good.
Yeah.
Like even the husband doesn't know like what,
Yeah,
what are they
that's
getting.
true, that's true.
Yeah, you get the freedom to have it, and like
yeah.
you're like,
And I think it works wonders because
Yeah.
there's like you're balancing both. It's like people have
Yeah.
a budget, but then they're not afraid of like, does
you
this
just-
budget
yeah,
work?
yeah.
And then like, will it create like some weird arrangement just because my budget is not enough kind of thing?
do you have any like challenges on the financial part per se? Yeah.
I mean, of course, on the first year of FS, as I mentioned, like we were struggling to stay afloat. It was crazy, and I had to take a pick. And when I picked like standing my ground and then still doing the work that I'm doing and being unconventional and everything, it was that risk. What if I lose it all, kind of thing. Could have lost it all, and then I am blessed that I've come so far. And I look back every day, and I'm like, I thank myself for making that choice. The answer to that question is yes, absolutely yes. And how I kind of coped is that I had to just realize I can't put all my eggs in one basket, which is why social media agency was always kind of like my backup plan, and also kind of like it didn't take too much of me to have to start something from scratch in order to receive some form of like supplementary income. I guess people don't talk about this. I think a lot of times it does look on the outside like, oh my gosh, like this project is like this particular, like for example, like for 5 digits like per project, and then it looks nice on the outside, but a lot of the times it has to kind of like balance out the quieter months, and then I think that is quite evident in a lot of businesses. We've had months where we struggled to the point of like I couldn't even pay myself. So, but I couldn't choose to shut it down just because we struggled for a few months.
Is there any day you feel like you really wanted to give it up?
When I think about that, it's like I snap out of it immediately because like, can I suppress all of my crazy ideas and all these visions, and like also kind of like, can I sit with myself at the end of the day knowing that I didn't do it all the way? So sure, there are days where like, I just don't want to do this, but like I've learned to just give myself a couple of days sometimes. So far, I feel like I don't regret any of the decisions that I've made so far, and I feel like it's just constantly growing the courage and the problem solving.
So would you say this is a passion?
I guess it's like
Floristry?
I didn't choose floristry chose me. I mean, I
Come
didn't,
to me, baby.
because like growing up I was somewhat artistic or creative, and I've always like drew, I painted, and if anything I'll fall to illustrating and or like all of that, but I never knew it was in me, and it was not something that I grew up that I like flowers kind of thing. Yeah, I guess I'm passionate about a lot of things though. You know how people are like, I don't have a passion? They do. They're just too scared.
They're suppressing it.
Yeah, I
A
guess
lot
so.
of times.
Yeah, I guess so. Because like it takes too much for them to like step out and actually realize that passion.
How did you manage like all these fears when you get into different challenges? And you mentioned like you love problem solvings. Can you give us one example when you face one challenge, and how do you come up from that? How do you pick yourself up? Like even if it's like an inconsistent income, like probably like the next month you couldn't like pay yourself. And how did you overcome that?
I think my short answer is faith. Oh, you know what? I'm going to pray to God, and then God's going to solve all these problems. But then again, it's like, yes, his promises are written, but you can't be a lazy person. Yeah. You can't just like, God hands to you all these gifts and resources. You can't just sit and then think that it will be sorted. And I feel that as I deepen my walk, my spiritual walk, I have less stress about if things work out or not. If the question is like, how do you gain faith, strengthen faith, is by faith. It's like the experience of, okay, I'm just gonna hand, like I've done all that I can, I'm just gonna hand it to God. And it's the experiences of like God just showing up with miracles after miracles after miracles that it really strengthens my faith to go forward with.
What is the biggest lesson you have learned from all these things?
I think it's more character development, like it's more personal growth than any business growth.
I think when you venture into different things, building a business, it actually builds your character more than you build the business.
That is true. At least in my case, I think in the baby stages, you just gotta throw yourself out there. I wouldn't say like throw yourself out there, do something that you don't like, but do something that feels right to you, and knowing that if it fails, it just is part of an experience. I think the biggest thing that I learned this year at least is not listening to anyone. And people talk about this all the time, right? But for my own personal experience is really just trusting that you know yourself enough and that you know that you feel this way, or you can get through it, or you feel right about this idea kind of thing. And because this particular year, I think a lot of people try to come into my life and be like, are you sure? And like doubts, right? So I learned to really suss out the noise. And I also learned that there is practice of like signal and noise. I don't know if you heard about this, but like people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, like they have this like noise and signal kind of thing. So signal is where you receive from like either in your quiet time on your own, and then like, you know, with nature or whatever. And then noise is where you let people come into your life, either like for meetings or like, you know, with your employees and staff and just people in general. And usually what's this, like high achieving people, they have more signal than noise, meaning they have more like their own kind of time. And I think I learned that is that I allow less noise into my life now, and I realized that that allowed me to really lock in and really be so hyper focused about the things that I want to do. When I mean like focus, it's really, I realized how big this noise will affect us whether we like it or not, because like it's just, you know, our human and our flesh. And I realized even if it's not a bad thing, even if it's like just hanging out with friends, whatever, there's so many things that will become noise and will disrupt our thinking because it will be like intruding, right?
Yeah.
It's all of these things that will eventually even become doubt or fear.
Because it kind of like repeat in your head throughout the night or throughout the week, right?
Yeah. And like, am I worth it? Am I worthy?
Yeah.
Like, am I actually doing this? And I feel like when I let people into my life and like they speak into my life, like no hate, like some of these people I really, really love and treasure, but it's just that I need to protect my, you know, my headspace so much so that I just cannot afford anyone to come into my life and speak into it. Actually, like not take what people say, like really when they say take it with a pinch of salt. It's really just like, just brush it off. And I don't even want to explain to people if like they get it wrongly or whatever. And I think I really just value, I'm so comfortable now with myself. Don't even feel sorry if you see me alone most of the time. I'm like, I could eat alone, I could go out alone, I could travel alone, I could eat hot pot alone, I could go to the cinema alone, and I love it, right? I'm really good at it. And I realized that that really helped me to be so focused and just like, and I think what it is that when you focus on one thing and just keep doing it, you will get somewhere, right? And you just have to work really, really hard to get somewhere. And
yes, I agree that because like some of them, like in the early stage, they actually already failed and they wanted to give up on everything. And that is because they haven't like really pushed through it and like
breakthrough
to the breakthrough. They only see the first initial stage where it is the toughest. Yeah, so I think entrepreneurship is about like pushing it through, resiliency, like what we have spoken about like in the conversation.
If there's one word, it's obsession.
Obsession,
like
correct.
Having that obsession that nobody can even pull you back, and it will mean also losing people along the way if they pull you back. And I don't even really care because I'm building something for myself and for my future family. And if you're not on board, look, you know, I don't gotta show you out, right? But I value the people who really come into my life and like really encourage me in genuine ways, in ways where they want me to win. And there are seasons for even people like this. And I feel like the biggest lesson for me this year is people, right? And how either people come and go, or like their voices don't really mean so much. And some people may kind of like, it feels like they're good in your life, but then they're not, or they're just for a season kind of thing. And so with people, you can't control them, right? So I wouldn't say stay away from people. It's just really like the 5 people in your circle you're the 6th person of the, you know, in the group, right? And I feel like if I don't have that, I'd rather not have a circle. I'd rather like really be with myself, and that includes like even family sometimes, because I just can't afford the noise. And look, it's the obsession. It's like believing it in a crazy way that it will happen. And I feel like when you're so obsessed with making something happen, you will figure it out.
Yeah.
Because you're so obsessed with the fact that you have this vision and God gave you this vision, for example. It's just going against your being if you don't do anything about it. And I think the obsession is what really drives people to have like multi-million billion businesses and like, you know, empires. And at the end of their career, they will tell you that they still love doing it and they have no regrets, and it's like pushing through all of that.
Yeah. I think at one point, like the billion, like 6, 7, 8 figures businesses, they don't, I think at one point, they don't really care about the money anymore. Like it's the purpose that fuels them to keep going on.
And I think on top of that, it's when you come into anything, are you more obsessed with doing the thing or the money? Because when you chase the money, it's not sustainable. When you have a rough month, obviously you're going to have a rough month or a rough year. And if you do it for the money, you won't be able to sustain. You won't be able to still be obsessed when the money is not good anymore. And a lot of people talk about this, like high achieving people, successful people, they always talk about how to focus on the work first and the money will come after. And I think it's the whole kind of like attraction where money is attracted to either high energy or like it's attracted to positivity. So if you go in, and I think like it's, if you're negative with yourself, I don't think entrepreneurs or like business owners are negative with themselves. I think they're so positive. That's why they're so obsessive.
But I think entrepreneurs, somehow they're allowed to give their like emotions out, and I'm sure they have like their downtime and everything, but I think once you have go through that and you have to pick yourself up, they are fast at doing that, isn't it?
No, for sure. Because I don't know about you, but I am two different person when I'm like at work and at home. So I don't know if it's because of upbringing. So like I think deep down I am like that when I'm at home, but when I'm at work, I feel like I have no emotions, not because I have no emotions, but it's like, look, there's a problem. How do we solve it? How do we get there? What is the most efficient way? What is the most like least time consuming or least costing? Then you kind of like are able to like separate, you know, your emotions and really get to the problem solving. But when I'm at home or like with, you know, people who I'm a baby. I'm useless. I don't even try to like explain myself, prove myself. There's no part of me that wants to even prove myself because there's no point.
Would you branch it out?
Yes and no. I would if it's in a different niche. For example, I won't duplicate it because it won't work. For example, I would branch out to KL probably if I were to do installation work. And because now my supplier, I found a supplier in KL that has like really good quality stuff for the non-fresh items that I'm using for the exhibition. So if I were to branch out, it will have to really cater to the market and a niche, but with a twist, like with FS twist. Still have that identity inside, but then like you still have to kind of have that consideration of like this particular, for example, like if it were to be in a hotel, we've been invited to open up shop, to branch out into hotels, but then in KK it's like the proximity is so near. Anyway, if it's too near and if it's the same concept, it will be just, there will be no point. Yeah, so yes, branching out would be one of the goals. It wouldn't be just duplicating the business. It will have to have a separate niche or like, you know, a proper expertise per se, or like a theme.
So looking back, what's the silver lining in your journey, like the moment or the lesson that changed everything for you?
I think there are certain characters in me all this while that was just able to believe in the crazy things that I want to do. And it's like, I always find myself in that situation where like I will solve that problem when I get there, kind of thing. Because of how delusional I am and so obsessive of the things that I want to do, I just like disregard a lot of the other things altogether. And then I think it's probably not like a very logical thing and or like a very acceptable thing to do, but it's when I choose it, I just really will see it through. And even with like the fact that the agency had a break, also because it was at that point of inconsistency and or just like the market wasn't serving, and like it was really weird because like social media had just kind of like arise and like it was just you know KK was just beginning to accept it, and it was like people weren't paying for it, and then everything all together. And so I took a break to really recalibrate and then see if I wanted to go back, and in which later I still found some passion in doing that, and which is why I still do it. The silver lining would also be the fact that I learn things very fast, and I'm very curious about learning different things, even if it was non-creative, I guess.
I think to drive it down, it is the three qualities that you have is that beliefs and the courage and also the adaptiveness
I guess so, yeah.
that you have.
Yeah, kind of
Yeah.
a chameleon energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
And this question we always ask our guests.
Oh, yeah.
If you have 1,000 ringgit right now,
Okay.
what would you do differently if you had to rebuild from zero today?
Trading, I guess, like whatever they call like drop shipping nowadays. Create a website and then like take nice pictures of something and then sell that product. Maybe just pick one product, right? And then sell that. You know, if you can beautify something and then really market sales, build a website, you know, make it look nice, social media. That is an option. And then like a home-based florist would be an option also.
If you do not have any content.
Anything at all, like throw me in a foreign country kind of thing. I feel like I will sell something. Let's say this particular neighborhood, like study the neighborhood first, like for example, the spending habits and or like just the habits in general. Like for example, if there's a scarcity in a certain thing, then just like kind of dive into that. For example, maybe this particular area there's a bunch of golfers, but then there's not as many like, you know, retail or whatever, and then just maybe just pick one item, right? And then or I actually listened to this in a podcast, but like for example, like go pick golf balls and then like recycle them and or like just like sell them kind of thing. I think is
use the minimum to
yeah. Just use whatever you have on hand, right? So it's either like starting something online because like that's you have a laptop and you have a phone or whatever, and or I feel like with AI, everything is so like attainable. Kind of like build something from there, and if it works, and I think also at the same time like talk to people, like go door to door, like business owners, retailers, and be like, hey, you know, blah blah blah. And when you gain more information about like this particular like demographic and or this area, and then find that scarcity where you can like come in with the least amount of like capital and or like no capital at all. If I have a phone at least. Yeah.
I think to conclude that it would be using your resources.
Yeah,
whatever
for
you
sure.
have, and
For
just create from there.